Peace, peace, peace. Today is September 6, 2020. Please hit that like button. Please hit that subscribe button. Doesn't cost you a thing. Today's topic is control to protect, the science of control to protect. I first came in contact with this information through my big brother Guy from work. Guy, salute. He's my OG. He imparts a lot of wisdom on me, and I take a lot of the information and I put it to the test. See what sticks to the wall, what doesn't. This one most definitely always stuck to the wall for, I want to say, the last 7-8 years. There's control to protect, and then there's control to manipulate. You have two different forms of control. When in most societies, the oligarchs or people who control that region control to manipulate. But then you have control to protect. Sometimes when you control the variables around people, it controls the decisions that they make, right? So you got to understand, you got to know your animal when you're dealing with human beings, because you have the human, the animal, and then you have the being, the spiritual part. Most people are closer to their animal side. So when dealing with that, you can't convince someone to know something that can only be known by themselves, but you can control the variables around them, right? And the variables that they see normally controls their decision. Minister Farrakhan had stated one time, whoever controls the diameter of your knowledge, controls the circumference of your activity. So the diameter of your knowledge is all the data and information that you know, right? Normally, and that creates your perception. Perception precedes behavior, which is the circumference of your activity. The circumference of your activity, or what you circle around, what you cipher around, activity-wise, is your behavior. So perspective precedes behavior. And you can only have a perspective based on the knowledge that you have, right? So control to protect is not to manipulate, it's to protect all parties involved, starting with self and everyone around you. So when dealing with people, you have to have, hindsight, insight, and foresight. Hindsight is the knowledge that you gather, the data and information. Insight is being able to see through things. It's like wisdom. Wisdom is not seeing things, but seeing through things. So you're able to see through the actual object without it actually opening up to you. Foresight is based on the hindsight, all that data and information that you gathered. You can predict what the outcome of a situation is going to be before it even happens. So you already know the proclivity of people's behavior, the tendencies, right? And sometimes it's good and sometimes it's bad. More times than not, it's bad. So control to protect is like you're protecting them from their own decisions that they're making. So an ego clash doesn't have to happen. Heads don't have to bump. How did Jay-Z he said it years ago. He says, where personalities clash and chrome meets chrome, right? Sometimes you have to protect that from happening by understanding the nature of the individual or individuals that you're dealing with. So you have to control the variables in order to protect them and yourself from that. Even if they can't see it, it's your responsibility to see it. It's a form of accountability. You're controlling because you understand that accountability lies on you and not others. Don't even leave it up to them to be accountable, because if we're being honest, most people are not going to be accountable. TBG is most people. TBG is the blame game. I'm going to blame everybody else after the results happen. I'm just going to blame everybody else. I'm not going to be accountable. So what I do is, from learning from my big brother Guy, and the science of control to protect, is don't even give them an opportunity to be in that position. Nip it from the bud. Control the variables from the giddy up, if that makes sense. Having that foresight to see things down the road. It's like when you play chess. Understanding your first move, second move. You know what move 11 and move 12 is going to be on your second move, because you have the foresight to see that. You're clairvoyant enough to be able to see things before they happen, right? Before the elements and the pieces actually fall into place, you're able to predict and draw a conclusion, a hypothesis, if you will, like the world of science. And that guess has an 80% accurate ratio before the actual conclusion actually plays itself out. In football, you have pre-snap and post-snap. Before the ball is even snapped, you can look out as the quarterback and see and read what kind of formation they're in and be able to tell what defense they're going to fall into, right? Is it a cover 3? Is it a cover 4? Is it a cover 2? These are variable, different defenses that can pop up, pop out there post-snap, after the ball is snapped and now the play is going, right? This is control to protect, right? So this is a science that I use when I'm dealing with people at all times. You got to be able to read the play. You have to be able to understand foresight-wise, how am I going to control and protect them and all parties involved from the giddy up. That's called being accountable, right? That's called being able to understand the nature of human beings and what side they're closer to, their lower side or their higher side. The ancients had the depiction of the Sphinx. The Sphinx was the pharaoh head on the top, the lion animal body in a tamed position with the tail coiled around to show that it's being controlled by the pharaoh. The pharaoh's not being controlled by the animal nature, the body. It is at its beck and call of the pharaoh, not the other way around. It's just like the ego, right? My ego is always with me, but it's with me as my servant. Just like that lion body, controlled to protect. I have to control this body in order to protect my life, my variables around me. If not, everything's going to spiral out of control. In most human beings, when you see them, I'm not a person that really subscribed that the ego is a bad thing, and the ego is a concept, but it's an innate quality in all beings, because it's three things. It's insecurity, fear, and danger. And when any one of those three things pop up, this innate thing called the ego has to fill the gap. Because fear, danger, and insecurity are a serious thing that has to be dealt with. Fear is produced in the mind. Danger is an external factor. Insecurity is an internal factor. And it doesn't make any human being feel good to feel insecure. You have to feel secure. So when security is not on the table, the ego steps in. By default, by proxy, it has to step in, right? So dealing with all of these different sciences of control to protect, I have to control my ego in order to protect myself from spiraling out of control. I have to also circumvent the ego of the other person and not make them feel insecure, so their ego don't step in and then our egos clash, where personalities clash and chrome meets chrome, or hands start getting thrown, right? In the hood we call it shooting the five, right? Either way, control to protect, understanding the nature of how the human being is with insecurities, the human side, the animal side. Yo, what you looking at, yo? Yo, what you said, right? Insecurity. You don't feel secure based on how you interfacing with this person. You feel a form of disrespect. And now the ego has to bridge that gap, and it steps in. And now it begins to lord over the observer. And the observer is not thinking rational no more. How do you remain rational? Control to protect, right? Yourself first and everyone around you. That's the science. I use this every day. I use it at work. I use it in the hood. I use it in business situations. And it works. You know, my brother Guy dropped a serious gem on me 7 to 8 years ago with that. And literally, I use it in all situations. When I scan a room, I'm reading the body language of everybody, right? In movies, they call it the 30-second trailer. You should be able to watch the 30-second trailer and know what the whole movie's about. I call it the 120-second trailer. because it'll take me about 120 seconds, even if the person don't say a word, to read what they're about. And your read should have a 78% accuracy. There are times where you're off. You know what I'm saying? You're not always going to get it right. Should be a 20% to 22% inaccuracy ratio. But for the most part, you should be accurate most of the time in your pre-snap reads. I'm using football terminology. Before the ball is snapped, I should be able to know what this person is about for the most part and be accurate. It's control to protect, right? This way you already 5 steps ahead of the person that you're interfacing with. I don't want to call them your opponent. It's just interaction. This is all knowledge of self. This is all acquiring information through something other than yourself. Now you can call it a friend, foe, a friend enemy, whatever you want to call it, but it's still control to protect, right? Using this as a catalyst in every person that you deal with. Understanding animal nature, understanding how people lead with their ego. I have an algorithm. I say that the ego, you need the ego, but you shouldn't lead with the ego. You need the ego, but you shouldn't lead with the ego. Leading with the ego is going to get you killed or locked up, right? Those of us that's from the element, from the ghettos, you've seen it all the time. Even in the business world, it doesn't really work out but for so long, because there's always somebody out there that's tougher than you. You're going to meet your match one day. I don't care who you are, right? You don't know what somebody knows or what they have on them. And there was a time where I was leading with my ego, but now I make it my servant, not my master. That's what the depiction of the Sphinx is about, when the ancient Cometians or the ancient Egyptians made that symbol. The pharaoh head is on top and is controlling, which is the spiritual side, is controlling the matter. Is it mind over matter, or is it matter over mind? The matter is the physical, the animal side. It's always the pharaoh, the mind over the matter. That's why the pharaoh head sits on top of the animal lion body. It's not the lion over the mind or the matter over the mind. In this world, it's been fixated that the matter is over the mind, and then the ego is leading. And making the ego lead you is only going to get you into trouble. The ego is there to fill in the insecurity, the fear, the danger factor that the observer might feel. And remember, ego is just a word, it's a concept that was given to us. It has no reality other than the reality that you give it. But that innate quality is real, because it's there to protect you, you know, from those 3 things that I mentioned. And you have to CEO how you manage that, which goes back to the previous videos before. Are you the CEO of your experience, or is experience the CEO of you? Which one, right? This is all self-awareness, self-transformation, self-consciousness. This is also self-defense. This is all falls in the line of control to protect. This is not control to manipulate it, like the powers that be use it as a tool to their benefit. This is a tool for you, and it also helps to protect those around you from themselves, because most people are not self-aware. And if I see that the person is not self-aware, then I have to control to protect them. Myself first and all parties involved. Myself first and all parties involved, if that makes sense, right? So the science of control to protect, authored by my big brother Guy. Big brother Guy, salute. So I'll end there. Let your last endeavor be your best endeavor. I repeat, let your last endeavor be your best endeavor. Please hit that like button. Don't forget that. Salute.